Courthouse was quieter than I expected. No drama, no shouting, just polished floors, low voices, and the heavy feeling of something irreversible about to happen. We sat together on a hard wooden bench, my brother, Jenny, and me, close enough to feel each other breathing. My parents arrived minutes later. They looked smaller than I remembered, not fragile, just diminished. My mother avoided my eyes. My father stared straight ahead like he could will reality into changing. When our case was called, we stood. My lawyer spoke calmly, methodically. He presented everything, the threats, the break-ins, the photos, the messages, the stalking, the violations. He didn't dramatize it. He didn't need to. The facts spoke loudly enough. The judge listened carefully, occasionally asking questions, occasionally glancing at my parents with a look that shifted from neutral to concerned. When it was their turn, my father spoke first. He said we were exaggerating, that they were just trying to reconnect, that this had all been misunderstood. The judge interrupted him. Did you abandon your 17-year-old daughter and move to another state without telling her? Silence. My father mumbled something about finances, about hard choices. The judge's expression hardened. When the ruling came, it was firm and clear. Restraining orders granted. 3 years, no contact, no approaching our homes or workplaces. No messages, no third parties. Any violation would result in immediate arrest. My mother gasped softly. My father went rigid. I didn't look at them. Outside, the sunlight felt too bright, too normal for a moment this heavy. My lawyer shook our hands and told us we'd done the right thing, that this was protection, not punishment. As we walked away, my mother said my name once. Quietly, I didn't turn around. That was the moment something finally released inside me. Not forgiveness, freedom. Life didn't magically become perfect after that. Healing isn't a switch you flip. It's work, therapy, nightmares, learning not to flinch when the doorbell rings. Slowly something new grew. My brother moved closer. Jenny and I learned how to trust each other. Their daughter started calling me auntie without hesitation. We made Sunday dinners a habit, built traditions from scratch, chosen family. Months later, a letter arrived through my lawyer, my parents acknowledging their failures, promising to respect boundaries. No demands, no manipulation. I keep the letter in a drawer, not because I'm ready to forgive. Because it reminds me of something important. I survived. I built a life. I chose love that doesn't hurt. I learned that family isn't who leaves you a note and disappears. Family is who stays, and I finally figured that out. Text came through as I was stepping onto the sidewalk. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost told myself I was done letting them hijack my nervous system. But something in my gut told me to look. It was a photo, my niece. Standing in a backyard, I recognized Jenny's friend's house. She was smiling, unaware, holding a toy in her hands like nothing in the world was wrong. Below the image were 4 words. This isn't over yet. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. I called my brother immediately. He answered on the first ring, panic already in his voice. Jenny was on her way to pick their daughter up. She hadn't noticed anything unusual yet. I forwarded the message to my lawyer while my hands shook so badly I had to sit down on a bench outside the coffee shop. This is a direct violation, he said. Call the police. Now, by the time I reached my apartment, 2 officers were already there with my lawyer. Statements were taken, screenshots saved, calls made. A patrol car was dispatched to the friend's house to check on my niece. She was safe. Shaken, and so were we. That night, no one slept. My brother paced. Jenny cried quietly in the bathroom so her daughter wouldn't hear. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, replaying the image over and over. They had crossed the line. Not just legally, morally, emotionally, dangerously. The next morning, my lawyer called with news. The restraining order hearing had been moved up. Evidence was mounting. The threats, the stalking, the break-ins, the photo. He was confident. Confidence didn't erase fear. That evening, another incident. A brick through my brother's car window in my building's garage. No note, no explanation, just shattered glass and silence. Security footage showed a man in a baseball cap, face turned away from the cameras. Not enough to identify him clearly, but we all knew. By Sunday night, we were exhausted, emotionally hollowed out, running on adrenaline and coffee. We sat together at my kitchen table making plans for court. What to say, what to bring, how to explain years of manipulation without sounding unbelievable. That night, just before I went to bed, an email came through from my mother. Subject line, last chance. The message was short. If you go to court tomorrow, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. I forwarded it to my lawyer without replying. He responded with one sentence. This helps us. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had come to this, from abandoned teenager to hiding from my own parents. And then morning came, court day. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, not because I was eager, but because I wanted control. I chose a table in the back corner where I could see the door without being visible from the street. I ordered a coffee I didn't plan to drink and sat there, breathing slowly, grounding myself. I wasn't there to reconcile. I wasn't there to negotiate. I was there to end something. They arrived exactly at noon. My mother spotted me first. She nudged my father and they walked over cautiously like people approaching an animal that might bolt. They looked smaller than I remembered, older, tired, but none of that softened me. They sat down without asking. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then I did. I didn't call this meeting to hear excuses, I said calmly. I didn't come for an apology, and I didn't come to help you. My father opened his mouth. I raised my hand. I'm not finished. I told them everything, the restraining orders, the documentation, the photos, the lawyer, the police reports. I told them I knew they were watching my building, that I had proof, that every message, every visit, every threat was being logged. If you contact me again, I said, I won't warn you. I'll escalate. My mother started crying, real tears this time. She said they were lonely, that they were scared. They didn't want to die alone. I looked at her and felt nothing. You made that choice 12 years ago, I said, when you left a note and walked away. My father grew angry, said I was ungrateful, that I owed them for raising me. that I was destroying the family. I laughed, not bitterly, not hysterically. Honestly, you abandoned a minor, I said. You don't get credit for the years you didn't finish. He went silent. I stood up, pulled out my phone, and showed them screenshots, the threats, the photo of my niece, the messages meant to scare us back into submission. I have sent copies of these to people you care about, I said evenly. And if you come near us again, everyone will know exactly who you are. My mother whispered my name. I leaned closer. I don't hate you, I said. I don't feel anything for you at all. And that's the consequence you earned. I turned to leave. Behind me, my mother asked softly, do you really mean this is goodbye? I didn't turn around. Yes, I said. I walked out of the coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in years, like something poisonous had finally left my system. But as my phone buzzed in my pocket moments later, I realized this wasn't over yet. At night, my apartment stopped feeling like a home. It became a shelter. My brother, his wife, and their daughter slept under my roof while my building's security cameras blinked quietly outside. The doorman knew our parents' faces now. Everyone double-checked locks. No one slept deeply. I kept telling myself we were safe, but safety felt fragile. The next morning, my lawyer filed emergency restraining orders for all of us. He sounded confident on the phone, told us the evidence was strong. Break-ins, threats, messages, escalation. Still, he warned us. Paper doesn't stop people, he said. Just gives the police something to act on. That afternoon, we tried to create some sense of normalcy. Take out boxes on the table, cartoons playing softly, my niece building a pillow fort in my living room like nothing in the world was wrong. I watched her laugh and felt a cold fear settle in my chest. She didn't understand any of this. She shouldn't have to. Then my doorman called again. There's a flower delivery, he said. Do you want me to send it up? I asked him to read the card first. His voice hesitated. It says, we know where you all are. This isn't over. I told him to refuse the delivery and call the police if necessary. I didn't tell my brother or Jenny. They were already breaking. That night, after everyone fell asleep, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the dark window. Fear, anger, grief, a strange sense of clarity. These people weren't trying to reconnect. They were trying to reclaim control. The next day, the call came. Jenny was hysterical. They broke in again, she cried. This time they took Lily's photos, important documents. They left everything else trashed. When I arrived at their house, police were already there. Drawers pulled out, papers everywhere. The officer looked skeptical. Are you sure this wasn't a misunderstanding? He asked. Family has keys sometimes. Jenny rolled up her sleeve and showed him the bruises. The officer's tone finally shifted. After they left, my lawyer stood in the wreckage of their living room and said quietly, this just crossed into criminal behavior. As we packed up what remained, my brother showed me another message. No words this time, just a photo. Their car parked across the street from my building, watching. I felt something inside me harden, because at that moment I understood something terrifying. There was no hiding from people who believed they owned you. At night, my apartment stopped feeling like a home. It became a shelter. My brother, his wife, and their daughter slept under my roof while my building's security cameras blinked quietly outside. The doorman knew our parents' faces now. Everyone double-checked locks. No one slept deeply. I kept telling myself we were safe, but safety felt fragile. The next morning, my lawyer filed emergency restraining orders for all of us. He sounded confident on the phone, told us the evidence was strong. Break-ins, threats, messages, escalation. Still, he warned us. Paper doesn't stop people, he said. Just gives the police something to act on. That afternoon, we tried to create some sense of normalcy. Take out boxes on the table, cartoons playing softly, my niece building a pillow fort in my living room like nothing in the world was wrong. I watched her laugh and felt a cold fear settle in my chest. She didn't understand any of this. She shouldn't have to. Then my doorman called again. There's a flower delivery, he said. Do you want me to send it up? I asked him to read the card first. His voice hesitated. It says, we know where you all are. This isn't over. I told him to refuse the delivery and call the police if necessary. I didn't tell my brother or Jenny. They were already breaking. That night, after everyone fell asleep, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the dark window. Fear, anger, grief, a strange sense of clarity. These people weren't trying to reconnect. They were trying to reclaim control. The next day, the call came. Jenny was hysterical. They broke in again, she cried. This time they took Lily's photos, important documents. They left everything else trashed. When I arrived at their house, police were already there. Drawers pulled out, papers everywhere. The officer looked skeptical. Are you sure this wasn't a misunderstanding? He asked. Family has keys sometimes. Jenny rolled up her sleeve and showed him the bruises. The officer's tone finally shifted. After they left, my lawyer stood in the wreckage of their living room and said quietly, this just crossed into criminal behavior. As we packed up what remained, my brother showed me another message. No words this time, just a photo. Their car parked across the street from my building, watching. I felt something inside me harden, because at that moment I understood something terrifying. There was no hiding from people who believed they owned you. My lawyer told me something that stuck with me. People who threaten lawsuits usually aren't planning to file them, he said. They're trying to scare you back into silence. I wanted to believe that meant we were nearing the end. I was wrong. At evening, my brother called from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened later, his voice was shaking. Jenny told me she came to see you, he said. Our parents are furious. They're saying terrible things about her now. I'm scared they're going to do something reckless. That word, reckless, sat heavy in my chest. At my lawyer's suggestion, we agreed to meet, public place. Lawyer present, no surprises. Next afternoon, I walked into a restaurant near his office and immediately felt the tension. My brother looked thinner than the last time I'd seen him. His wife sat beside him, quiet, her arms crossed protectively. There was a faint bruise on her forearm she kept trying to hide. The story that poured out was worse than I'd imagined. My parents had been living off them for years, moving in and out, draining money, criticizing their parenting while demanding help. Ginny confronted them about me. My father had grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks. That was the moment my brother finally kicked them out. Now they were staying in a motel, calling nonstop, showing up at his job, threatening. Claiming they still had access to his life, cosign loans, shared accounts, spare keys, passwords. My lawyer took notes silently, then told them exactly what to do, change everything. Locks, accounts, passwords. Document every interaction. As we stood to leave, my brother hugged me. This time I hugged him back. It wasn't forgiveness, it was recognition. That night the messages started. Accusations, threats, guilt disguised as love. Blocked every number. The next morning, Ginny called me sobbing. They broke into our house. They'd taken documents, photos, a laptop, baby pictures. Left a note that said, "Family matters should stay in the family." Police came. Asked questions, didn't seem convinced. After they left, my lawyer looked grim. "This changes everything," he said. "We're filing for emergency restraining orders." As we packed bags to stay somewhere safer, my brother showed me a text from our father. 3 words, "We're watching you." That was when I made a decision. They were coming with me, because this wasn't just harassment anymore. It was a warning. Knock on my door came just after noon. Not aggressive, not hesitant, controlled. My doorman's voice followed through the intercom. "There's a young woman downstairs with a child. She says she's your sister-in-law." My chest tightened. Wouldn't stop, they just kept sending people. I told him to send her up. If this was going to end, it wouldn't end with me hiding. When the door opened, the woman standing there didn't look like someone sent to manipulate me. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, a sleeping toddler balanced against her shoulder. "I'm Jenny," she said softly. "Michael's wife." I let her in cautiously. She placed her daughter on my couch, tucked a blanket around her, then sat at my kitchen table like someone bracing for impact. "I only learned about you 3 years ago," she said. "Michael told me you ran away at 17. I didn't interrupt. I always thought that story felt wrong," she continued. "But I didn't push. Hearing your podcast changed everything." She said she'd confronted my brother. That he'd finally admitted the truth, that my parents had abandoned me, lied about it, rewritten history. "I'm horrified by what they did to you," she said quietly, "and I had no idea they were asking you for money." "That's not okay." Then she dropped the bomb. "My surgery isn't the issue," she said. "We have insurance, we're stable. It was my parents who were drowning." I asked her why she'd come. She unlocked her phone and slid it across the table. Facebook posts, old ones. My mother asking for prayers for her troubled daughter who ran away. My father claiming I'd stolen money before disappearing. Posts about hiring private investigators, about searching shelters. All dated years after they left me. They hadn't just abandoned me. They destroyed my reputation to cover their tracks. "I couldn't stay quiet," Ginny said, "not with my daughters watching. Don't want them growing up thinking this is acceptable." When she left, I sat alone for a long time, staring at my reflection in the dark window. Then my phone buzzed, an email from my father. This one wasn't guilt-soaked, it was threatening. Accusations of defamation, threats of lawsuits, demands I take down the podcast and issue a public apology, or else. I forwarded it to my lawyer. His response was immediate. "Empty threats," he said. This just escalated, and he was right, because once abusers realize they're losing control, they don't back down, they get desperate. I thought once they left my hallway it would stop. It didn't. That night I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. I checked the locks twice, then 3 times. I kept replaying my mother's voice through the door, the way she said my name like she still had a right to it. Next morning I got an email from my brother. He was furious. He said I'd humiliated our parents, said they were staying in a cheap motel they couldn't afford just to be near me, said my refusal to see them was cruel. And he brought it back to money, how desperate things were, how my mom's health was fragile, how families should support each other. I didn't reply. Instead, I booked a flight to Portland to visit Rachel, the friend who had once let me sleep on her couch when I had nowhere else to go. I needed distance, safety, someone who knew the truth. I was throwing clothes into a suitcase when my phone rang. Unknown number. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, my doorman called again. "There's a woman downstairs," he said carefully. "She looks unwell, she's asking for you by name, says she's your mother." My stomach dropped. I told him to call an ambulance if she needed help, but I wasn't coming down. An hour later, as I left for the airport, the doorman told me the ambulance had taken her to the hospital for chest pains. Guilt hit me like a wave. At the airport, my phone rang again. This time I answered. "Mom had a heart attack," my brother said, sobbing. "She's in surgery. This is your fault. You stressed her out." I hung up. I called Melissa instead. "You are not responsible for her health," she said firmly. "This feels like manipulation." Get on the plane, I did. The weekend with Rachel helped until it didn't. Sunday night, an email came from my father. My mom was stable. A stent had been placed. Then the final line, "She's asking for you." "When you think you've punished us enough," Rachel read it and snorted. Textbook guilt tripping. I knew she was right. Still, guilt lingered. When I flew home Monday, there were flowers outside my apartment door. The card said, "Please call us, we're staying nearby." No apology. No respect for boundaries. Just another demand. I threw them away. Tuesday morning, a message came from an unknown number. It was a photo of my mother in a hospital bed. The text read, "She may not have much time. Can you live with this regret?" That was the moment something inside me went cold, because this wasn't love. This was emotional warfare, and it wasn't over yet. I thought setting boundaries would be enough. I was wrong. After I stopped responding, the messages didn't slow down, they multiplied. Emails, voicemails, missed calls from unknown numbers. Each one dressed up as concern, but underneath it all was pressure, urgency, control. My brother texted, asking if we could talk again. I agreed to one phone call, nothing more. I needed to believe that at least one relationship from my past could be salvaged. The call started calmly. He apologized again for pushing me about money, said he'd been thinking a lot, said he'd started therapy. I wanted to believe him. His voice sounded different, less defensive, more tired. Then he mentioned our parents were coming to visit him. Would you consider meeting them? He asked, just for an hour. Public place, my chest tightened instantly. I'm not ready for that, I said. He pushed gently at first. Then I went quiet. He backed off, but the damage was done. That night, I barely slept. I called Melissa the next morning and told her everything. She helped me see what I hadn't wanted to admit. I wasn't afraid of my parents. I was afraid of still wanting them to love me. That truth hurt more than anything they'd said. Next day, my brother texted again, said our mom had been crying nonstop, said our dad was talking about driving to my city anyway. That's when panic set in. I blocked his number. And I told my assistant I'd be working from home for the week. Ordered groceries, stayed inside, hid like the scared 17-year-old I thought I'd outgrown. On Wednesday, my doorman called. There's a couple downstairs asking for you, he said. They won't give their names. I knew instantly. I told him I wasn't accepting visitors. 5 minutes later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my father. We drove 8 hours to see you, he said, his voice sharp with anger. You're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain. I deleted the message. Thursday morning, someone started pounding on my door, not knocking. Pounding, I froze in bed, heart racing, every muscle locked. Slowly, I moved to the peephole. It was them, standing in my hallway like they belonged there. Emma, please, my mother called through the door. You know you're home? We love you, my father added. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, shaking, my back pressed against the door as if my body alone could keep them out. I didn't open it. Eventually, they left. But something had shifted, because this wasn't reconciliation. It was harassment, and it was only getting worse. I almost didn't answer the call. I hadn't given my mother my number. That meant my brother had. For a moment, I just stared at the screen as it vibrated in my hand, my chest tight, my heart beating too fast. Curiosity won. Her voice sounded older, thinner. When I said hello, she started crying immediately, loud, messy sobs that felt rehearsed, like she'd been waiting years to perform them. She told me how proud she was of me, how she'd always known I would succeed, how special I was, how strong. The same words they'd used to justify leaving me behind. I let her talk until she ran out of breath. Then I asked the question I'd waited 12 years to ask. Why me? There was a pause, then she said it. We were drowning, she explained. We were in debt. We couldn't afford 3 mouths to feed. We knew you were smart enough to survive. We thought you'd go to social services, maybe get placed with a better family. We thought we were helping you, helping me, by abandoning me at 17, by leaving me homeless, by lying to everyone about it. My hand was shaking so badly I had to sit down. You thought leaving me alone was a favor, I asked. She started crying harder, said they'd prayed about it, said they believed God would take care of me. Said they didn't think it would be that hard. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I hung up. I blocked her number immediately, threw my phone across the room and screamed into a pillow until my throat burned. Something inside me cracked, not loudly but cleanly. That illusion of maybe they cared finally died. The next morning, I woke up to another email. This one was from my father, the first contact in 12 years. He didn't ask how I was, didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge the note, the abandonment, the lies. Instead, he wrote about how difficult their lives had been, medical bills, failed businesses, how my brother's wife needed surgery, how eviction was looming. Then, at the very end, one sentence. We were hoping you could help the family out. That was it. No shame, no hesitation, just entitlement. I forwarded the email to Melissa with the subject line. There it is, she called me immediately, even though it was a Sunday. We talked for over an hour about boundaries, about guilt, about the difference between forgiveness and access. By the time we hung up, I knew something important. They didn't want me back. They wanted what I'd built. And that realization came with a terrifying question. I knew the moment I finished reading his email that something was off. At first, my brother repeated the same explanations, how young he'd been, how scared, how confused. He talked about guilt, about regret, about wishing he'd handled things differently, but then his tone shifted. He admitted money had been tight for them back then. My parents' business had failed, bills had piled up, stress had taken over everything, and now things weren't much better. His wife was pregnant with their second child. Medical expenses were stacking up. Work was unstable. Life felt heavy. My stomach dropped as I read the words. There it was, the missing piece. They hadn't found me because they missed me. They'd found me because they needed something. I didn't reply right away. A few days later, my mother sent another email. This one included old family photos, pictures of me as a baby, smiling in a high chair. Photos from a beach trip when I was 5. A snowman my brother and I had built one winter afternoon. They looked like memories from someone else's life. At the bottom of the email, she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." No specifics, no ownership. Just a soft sentence meant to smooth over a wound that never healed. I brought everything to Melissa. She listened carefully, then said something that stuck with me. You're allowed to want closure without offering access. That was when I realized I didn't actually want reconciliation. I wanted answers. So I agreed to meet my brother alone. We chose a coffee shop halfway between our cities. Neutral ground, public, safe. The moment I saw him, I barely recognized him. Older, heavier, tired in a way that came from years of compromise. We didn't hug. We sat across from each other like strangers, pretending not to be. First 20 minutes were painful. Weather, traffic, work. Then he apologized, said he was sorry for not protecting me, for believing our parents, for being too afraid to stand up to them. I asked him the question that had haunted me since I was 17. Why me? He stared into his coffee for a long time before answering. They always said you were strong, he said quietly. Independent. One who'd be fine on her own. They told themselves I didn't need them. That lie destroyed my life. I told him everything, the storage unit, the hunger, the YMCA showers, the night shifts. His face collapsed. He whispered that he hadn't known, that they'd told him I chose to stay behind, that I had a plan. Lies stacked on lies. By the time we left, I felt empty, not angry, not relieved, just unsure. Then that night my phone rang. It was my mother, and what she said next made everything painfully clear. Email sat in my inbox for hours before I opened it. I'd read hundreds of messages that week, strangers thanking me, people telling me my story helped them feel less alone. Survivors of family abandonment sharing pieces of their own pain. It was overwhelming but comforting in a strange way. Then I saw the subject line, "You're still our daughter." My chest tightened instantly. It was from my mother, no emojis. No warmth, no apology, just that sentence. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the mouse, debating whether some doors were better left closed. I'd built my life without them. I was stable, safe, whole enough. So why did 3 words still have the power to shake me? When I finally opened the email, it was exactly what I feared: polite, distant, almost professional. She wrote about hearing my side of the story. About how maybe we could talk. No acknowledgement of the note, no explanation, no remorse, just an invitation as if nothing had happened. An hour later, another message arrived. This one was from my brother. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" That message felt different, shorter, less calculated, still painful but human. I closed my laptop and went for a long walk, trying to breathe through the memories rushing back. Part of me wanted to scream at them. Another part wanted answers, and a tiny, embarrassing part of me still wanted their love. I didn't respond right away. My therapist, Melissa, urged me to slow down. "You don't owe them immediacy," she said. "Take time. Feel everything before you decide anything." So I did. I went to the gym, had dinner with friends, focused on work, normal things, but every night I reopened those emails, read them, closed them again. My mom's message felt cold. Controlled, my brother's felt hesitant. After 10 days, I finally replied, not to my mother, to my brother. I typed one sentence and stared at it for a full minute before hitting send. It's been 12 years. What changed? His reply came faster than I expected. He said the podcast made him realize what they'd done, that he'd been only 15 when they left me, that he hadn't had a choice, that he'd thought about me over the years but never knew how to reach out, that seeing me successful made him proud. I didn't believe all of it, and I told him that. I asked the question that had been sitting heavy in my chest. If you cared, why wait until I was publicly successful? There was a pause, then came the truth. I almost said no, not because I didn't need the money, I desperately did, but because I was exhausted. I'd worked the diner shift until dawn, my feet aching, my brain foggy. The idea of starting another job felt impossible. Something in me whispered, don't waste this, so I showed up. The office was quiet, dusty, forgotten. Rows of filing cabinets, yellowed folders, decades of paperwork no one wanted to deal with. The job was simple. Organize, shred, label, repeat. No customers, no yelling, no pretending to smile, just work. I treated that temporary job like it was everything. I arrived early. I stayed late. I asked questions even when my voice shook from nerves. When I finished my tasks, I asked for more. I didn't complain. I didn't explain my situation. I just worked, and people noticed. That temp job turned into another one. And another, different offices, different managers. Each time someone would recommend me to someone else. I learned quickly: spreadsheets, scheduling, basic accounting, client communication. Night, I watched tutorials and practiced on free software, teaching myself skills I didn't even know existed a year earlier. By 22, I wasn't serving food anymore. I was freelancing. It didn't feel glamorous. Felt fragile. One missed client could mean disaster. One bad month could send me right back to the storage unit. So I saved obsessively, tracked every dollar, built systems for myself because no one else was going to save me if I failed. 25, I did something terrifying. I started my own consulting business. There was no office, no team, just me, a folding table and a borrowed laptop in a tiny apartment, but it was mine. For the first time in my life, everything I built stayed with me. By 27, I had contractors working under me, a real office, clients whose logos I used to stare at like they belonged to another world. By 29, something happened that still feels unreal when I say it out loud. I became a millionaire, not the flashy kind. No rented cars, no fake flexing online, just savings, retirement accounts, no debt. Paid off apartment, health insurance I didn't have to choose between, and groceries. The day I saw my bank balance cross 7 figures, I sat on my bedroom floor and cried, not from joy, from grief. Because through all of it, the nights I didn't eat, the years I fought for stability, the milestones that should have been celebrated, my family never reached out, not once. And one day my phone buzzed with a notification that made my stomach twist. A podcast interview I'd done about surviving family abandonment had gone viral. 1 million views in 4 days. And suddenly, my silence was broken. The time my last friend stopped answering my messages, I understood something brutal. I was officially on my own. I remember dragging my duffel bag into the storage facility like it was temporary, like this wasn't really happening. I told myself I'd sleep there for just 1 night, maybe 2, just until I figured something out. That turned into weeks. The unit smelled like dust and old cardboard. Night, I curled up behind stacked boxes so no one would notice me if they walked by. I set an alarm for before sunrise so I could sneak out without being seen. Every sound made my heart race: footsteps, metal doors slamming, distant voices. I showered at the YMCA, pretending I was just another early morning gym regular. I ate peanut butter straight from the jar because it was cheap, filling, and didn't need cooking. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, same spoon, same jar, same quiet humiliation. But the worst part wasn't the hunger, it was the pretending. Every day, I sat at library computers applying for jobs, fixing my hair in the bathroom mirror, forcing my face into something that looked normal. I smiled at librarians. I told people I was between places. I learned how to sound confident while my entire life was collapsing. After dozens of applications, I finally got a call back from a diner, night shift. Server position, cash under the table until I could get an ID. I said yes before the manager even finished speaking. The job was brutal, long hours, greasy floors, drunk customers who snapped their fingers at me like I was invisible. The manager was rough around the edges, but fair. She didn't ask questions I couldn't answer. One night, when she found me shaking in the break room from exhaustion, she let me nap there for 20 minutes before my shift. I cried quietly into my apron so no one would hear. That first year wasn't about dreams or goals or success. It was about survival. I bought a prepaid phone, saved every receipt. Watched free YouTube videos about budgeting and goal setting at 2 in the morning while my body ached. I learned how to stretch $10 into a week, how to keep moving even when everything inside me wanted to quit. And still not a word from my family. No birthday text, no holiday message, no "are you alive?" Sometimes I wondered if it would have been easier if I hated them, but it wasn't hate, it was something heavier, heartbreak. The turning point came from someone I barely knew. A regular at the diner noticed how hard I worked. One night, he asked if I wanted a temporary job helping clean out old office files. It paid 3 times what I made serving. I said yes without hesitation. That one yes changed everything. Because for the first time since I was 17, the ground beneath me stopped shaking, and I had no idea just how far that single opportunity was about to take me. I was 17 years old the day I walked into my house and realized my entire life had been erased. The front door was unlocked, the lights were off, no voices, no TV, no sound at all. First, I thought maybe they'd stepped out for groceries, or gone to dinner without me. That had happened before, but then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The walls were bare, the family photos were gone. Couch cushions were missing, even the coat rack by the door stood empty, and on the kitchen counter, right where my mom used to leave grocery lists, was a single folded piece of paper. I already knew something was wrong. But I still opened it, 3 words. "You'll figure it out." That was it. No explanation, no goodbye, no phone number, no apology. Just those 3 words, written like a grocery reminder, left behind for a child who had no idea what she'd done to deserve this. I stood there for a long time, holding the paper, rereading it like maybe the meaning would change if I stared hard enough. I kept thinking, did I miss something? Was there a fight? Was this some kind of punishment? Deep down, I already knew the truth. They weren't angry. They were done. Growing up, I'd learned early that love in my family was conditional. I was praised when I was useful, invisible when I wasn't. 13, I baked my mom a birthday cake by myself. She took one bite, frowned, and said it was clumpy. At 15, I spent weeks tutoring my younger brother through finals. He called me a know-it-all and slammed his door in my face. At 16, I handed my entire paycheck to my dad so he could cover bills. Months later, when I asked about it, he yelled that I was useless for even bringing it up. I was always needed, but never wanted. Still, I never imagined they'd leave me like this. I found out the rest a week later when the landlord knocked on the door. My parents had canceled the lease early. He told me I had 7 days to get out. 7 days. No savings, no backup plan, no family. I slept on friends' couches for as long as they'd let me. When the invitations stopped, I rented a storage unit with the last of my money and slept in the back of it at night. I showered at the YMCA, ate peanut butter straight from the jar, applied for jobs on library computers while pretending everything was fine. And through all of it, the hunger, the fear, the loneliness, my family never called, not once. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. They hadn't just left me behind, they expected me to disappear.